is the Capitol Rundown.
The thing I'm most immediately worried about as a national security person is it's going to hyper speed up and make more powerful cyber attacks.
I was raised by people who fought for the great people of Michigan, the working class people of Michigan, and that spirit came through me.
Wow, let's check our watches. The next election is over 300 days away.
Wow.
And so why are the Democrats running commercials?
It's all straight ahead. The Capitol Rundown starts now.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Siobhan Klepfer. Former President Donald Trump has been ordered to appear in a federal courthouse on Tuesday after being indicted on federal criminal charges stemming from his handling of classified documents. In a video message on Thursday night, he denied any wrongdoing, calling it all a hoax. He also said he has a big lead over all candidates, both Democrat and Republican, in the polls of the 2024 presidential election. Well, we are still a year and a half away from picking our next president, but the number of people who officially want to be the next commander-in-chief continued to grow this past week as 3 more Republicans joined the race for the White House. The most prominent among them is former Vice President Mike Pence. The Indiana native served as a congressman for 12 years before taking over as governor there in 2013. And after his first term, he joined on as Mr. Trump's running mate. Well, now he's taken on his old boss for the nomination and told a crowd in Iowa this past week that he has a different vision than his former boss and that it's time for a change.
We can defend our nation and secure our border. We can revive our economy and put our nation back on a path to a balanced federal budget. We can defend our liberties and give America a new beginning for life. But it'll require new leadership in the White House and the Republican Party.
Then there's former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. He served 2 terms in his state's top job from 2010 to 2018. This is his second bid for the White House. He ran back in 2016 before dropping out and endorsing Donald Trump. He even ran Trump's transition team, although he never joined the administration himself. But he turned on Trump after January 6th and now makes no bones about trying to take him down.
The reason I'm going after Trump is twofold. 1, he deserves it. And 2, it's the way to win.
And then there's a current governor who also jumped into the fray. Doug Burgum might not exactly be a household name, and that might be because he leads the 47th smallest state in the nation by population. He's the head of North Dakota. Burgum is in his 2nd term as the head of the Peace Garden state. Before that, he was a businessman who sold his software company to Microsoft for more than $1 billion. And Burgum says he knows what he'll prioritize as commander-in-chief.
To unlock the best of America, we need a leader who's clearly focused on 3 things: economy, energy, and national security. And that is why today I'm officially announcing I'm running for the President of the United States of America.
Well, that brings the total number of Republican presidential candidates to 11. For some reason, many members of the media don't count Michigan's Perry Johnson when they're putting together their lists. And it's not just would-be presidents who are thinking about the next election. Here in Michigan, Republicans lost the House of Representatives in 2022, and they want it back in 2024. So they're asking an old friend to help them out. His name is Rick Snyder, and he served 2 terms as governor from 2011 to 2019. House Republicans this week named him the chair of the House Republican Campaign Committee's fundraising committee. Snyder, using his old catchphrase, says House Republicans are taking relentless positive action for the state, and he's happy to help them out. Of course, Democrats are also fighting to keep the House. This past week, the party launched an ad against some Republican lawmakers who voted against gun laws in the aftermath of the shootings at Michigan State University. Listen.
When tragedy struck MSU, Michigan fought back by passing common-sense gun safety laws. But Representative Mark Tisdale voted against these bills.
How can you tell me that you want someone who's mentally ill to be walking around with a firearm?
The commercials target Mark Tisdale and 5 other Republicans where Democrats think they can oust the incumbents. Well, coming up, it was a busy week in the Capitol in Lansing, so we're going to talk to our Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic to catch us up on the week that was. That's next on the Capitol Rundown. Welcome back. It's been a big week in Michigan politics, and our Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic is here for you now to offer updates and insight. Take a listen.
It's time to get updated politically here in the state of Michigan, and nobody better than this guy right here, Tim Skubic, to give us the lowdown. And as we mentioned earlier in the show, the state Democratic Party is running political ads against Republicans who voted against gun laws following the Michigan State University shooting. How will that respond to voters?
Wow, let's check our watches. The next election is over 300 days away.
Wow.
And so why are the Democrats running commercials when people are more concerned about, you know, cleaning up the cottage up north and getting the boat in the water and all that good stuff? Well, here's the if you will, the method to their madness. They found 6 Republicans who are in swing districts. Those are districts that they won by just a razor-thin margin last time. So they are vulnerable. They are running commercials pointing out that these 6 Republicans all voted the, quote, wrong way on the gun safety issue. That is to say, they voted no. 3 of these Republicans are from Oakland County, which you know was the site of a shooting at the Oxford High School in Oakland County. In fact, one of the representatives, Representative Steele, actually represents that school district in her district. This does not probably decide the elections right now, but it does demonstrate how potent the gun issue is going to be as we move deeper into this 2024 election cycle.
Well, former Governor Rick Snyder, a Republican who served 2 terms, is now the chairman of the House Republican Campaign Committee's fundraising committee. What will he bring to that job that could help or hurt Republican fundraising efforts?
Yeah, good question. Rick Snyder, anybody remember him? He sort of disappeared, okay? I've had some contact with him over the past couple of years, but clearly this is his coming out party. And what he's doing is that he's decided, along with one of his friends who has a lot of money, that they will combine their forces and they will try to raise as much money as they can to take back control of the Michigan House. That really is the big enchilada for the state of Michigan, as the Democrats are trying to hold on to control, Republicans trying to take it away, and of course you need money to do that. And while the Democrats are busy running commercials, Rick Snyder and his pals are busy raising money to pick out candidates who are non-Trumpers. Governor Snyder has made it very, very clear he's not about to raise money for any of those candidates who want to legislate and prosecute the last election. And so Rick Snyder now becomes the funnel to raise money and help the Republicans get back control of the Michigan House.
Wow, great updates today, Tim. We appreciate it. Good talking with you.
Thanks, buddy. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Tim Jorma, thank you. Coming up, we're going to sit down with the man who wants to be Michigan's next senator. We'll introduce you to Zach Burns when the Capitol Rundown returns. There's a rare opening for a U.S. Senate seat for Michigan because incumbent Democrat Debbie Stabenow says she's retiring when her term ends in 2024. So our Keir Lake sat down with a Democrat who wants to fill her shoes. Here's her chat with Zach Burns about who he is and why he's running.
Zach Burns, Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate. Thank you so much for joining us today. We love having you. And also, let's just talk about a little bit about yourself. Let's start there.
Sure. So I'm a fighter. I was raised by people who fought for the great people of Michigan, the working class people of Michigan, and that spirit came through me. And you know, throughout my entire career, I've been fighting. Right? I had to fight as a wrestler in order to get out of high school and get to college. You know, where I had the opportunity after a lot of sacrifice and frankly hard work for my community and family to go to Princeton. I hadn't even heard of that school when I was applying for it, and then from there I fought to get to Oxford. And along that way, I was fighting for working people. You know, you never forget where you come from. You know, I come from Genesee County in Flint, right? So I show up at Oxford and we have the Flint water crisis, and I come home and I'm staring at signs that says, "We don't use Flint water." You know, my mom lives in the city of Flint, right? These are real issues for real people.
And now you touched on a little bit about why you're deciding to run for Senate, but let's talk about your platform. Are there any specific ideas that you want to touch on?
Yeah, healthcare is a fundamental right. We don't sacrifice our environment for a little profit today. We have big issues affecting working class people here in the state of Michigan. We can't afford childcare. I know I'm getting ready to start that large payment, and it's a lot. We have an opportunity right now as Michiganders to say, what are our values? And my platform, I think, represents those values because it represents working class people and how we're going to afford a living wage, how we're going to support unions and the good work that they do. Because when you're at the table of power, and I've been there, we have to make sure we're standing together shoulder to shoulder because that's the only way that we move forward in what we're doing.
When it comes to where you fall on the political spectrum, now would you describe yourself as a centrist, a progressive, where do you lie?
I'm a Democrat. And I'm a Democrat because I'm focused on working class issues. And I don't necessarily think it's progressive to say that we want people to have a fundamental right to have health care. I don't think it's progressive to say that we've already been through one water crisis. Why are we letting ourselves go through another when it comes to PFAS? I don't think it's acceptable when you're kayaking down the Huron River to see a sign that says, if you hit some of the foam, make sure you wash your hands. I don't think it's right that the Rouge has raw sewage going into it. I think these are the solutions that we have to take. And I keep saying, we need to take our issues to Washington. I'm tired of hearing Washington's problems coming to Michigan.
Up next on The Rundown, we will continue our chat with Zach Burns. We'll ask him what separates him from other Democrats, and we'll talk about his experience and qualifications to become a member of the Senate. The Capitol Rundown will be right back. Welcome back. We've got more now from our conversation with Zach Burns. He's a Democrat running for the U.S. Senate. Kira Lake continues the questioning.
In a primary, you're running against a bunch of people who hold the same views as you. Now, do you have any beliefs that set you apart from the others?
Sure. So I think what's great about this election, and you hit on it, Cora, there's a choice in this election. And that's one of the most fundamental things because in this election already, we have seen that Washington is trying to pick somebody who should be our next senator. I don't think that's acceptable. I think nobody should stand in between a voter and the ballot box. You should have all the choices that you want when you're walking into that voting booth, and you should cast your vote based on your values. And so yes, you're absolutely correct. There are differences in our Democratic Party. Others in this race believe in a public option, which is merely ensuring that our large health insurance companies are making millions in profit while we're being denied health care coverage, while our deductibles are going up, while small businesses can't control the cost of their health care and are spending weeks.
Well, it's not a prerequisite. It doesn't appear you have experience as an elected official. Now, what would you say to people who wondered about that and if you're qualified for this job?
If you think Georgia's got two great senators, then I think we've answered your question to say there's other ways of getting experience and knowing what it means to fight. During the pandemic, I was negotiating vaccine contracts around the world. I know what it's like to sit at the table in the middle of a crisis and make decisions. I think that's absolutely important. But I've also been an elected official. I was a local elected official in my state. I've been on a finance committee. I've sat on capital planning. I've dealt with ARPA funds and trying to solve a PFAS issue in town. I made these votes and had to make these decisions in community planning. So I know what it's like to be an elected official being given money by the federal government. And that is incredibly important in this race because at the end of the day, as a federal government, our job is to also incentivize local communities to build a better community, to help with issues in our communities like water, like infrastructure, like affordable housing. But at the end of the day, I look at being a scientist. I'm an advocate, right? I've published papers on police reform, and I've worked with one of the top leading black scholars in our country on implicit bias and racial anxiety. I know what we need to do, and Midwesterners lead. We saw that in the same-sex marriage debate. Right? I know what it's like at the end of the day to wait for somebody to say, you can get married to your husband. I know what that feels like to wait on these values. And I think we need to send somebody from Michigan who's going to be a champion, not just for working class people, but on all of our civil rights issues and ensure we're building coalitions to move our country forward.
And we followed up with Burns about his elected experience. He says he was voted on the select board in Stowe, Massachusetts, where he lived while his husband did his medical residency at Harvard. Coming up next, we'll talk to one of Zach Burns' biggest contenders for the Senate seat, but we are not talking politics. Instead, we're going to talk with Alyssa Slotkin about artificial intelligence and what America needs to do in terms of its promise and power and protection. That's next on the Capitol Rundown. You've heard a lot recently about artificial intelligence, or AI. It used to be the stuff of science fiction, but now it's real. It holds a lot of promise and potential, but plenty of people can also abuse its power, and even supporters say the government needs to provide some protection. Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin chairs the Cybersecurity Caucus, so we asked her what needs to happen next.
I think that artificial intelligence and some of the developments that have gone on just in the past year are really, really earth-shattering developments. I mean, I think we'll be talking about this year as sort of a new era because artificial intelligence can do such powerful things. The thing I'm most immediately worried about as a national security person and as the chairwoman of the Cybersecurity Caucus is it's going to hyper speed up and make more powerful cyber attacks, right? Because right now, everyone's gotten one of those emails that says, hey, click here and we'll give you some deal, and that click is a way to get inside your system, crawl inside your systems, get your information. Well, now you're just going to be able to see 10 times as many of those emails sent. They're going to hyper-target them, make them specific to you and what they can learn about you on the internet, make them more effective. So the most important thing that I'm worried about first and foremost is how much more effective cyber attacks are going to get. But there is a ton of implications for the Pentagon, a ton. And our adversaries are already using AI to catch up to us. I think there needs to be some urgency, and this is the problem, is that, you know, sort of most of the world is just trying to understand what AI can do, and the people who created artificial intelligence are saying, hey, we need to be regulated. Like, please, we're scared of the things that we're creating, which is pretty amazing. So at a minimum, I've called for us to understand and register every company that's using AI, right? Making sure we understand what the right regulatory framework is. There's lots of rules of the road for lots of industries, right? If you're selling a car, you have rules that you have to abide by. We're trying to understand what the rules of the road should be for artificial intelligence, but it's so new that it's hard for Congress to understand. The people who run Congress, I mean, that's a flip phone generation, right? That's not folks who grew up with AI. So there's a bit of a gap that we're trying to bridge right now, and a lot of us with a security background are trying to do that. And I think it's a place where you could get a lot of bipartisan interest, right? Right now, one of the things that's very bipartisan is dealing with the Chinese government, right? And increased aggression with the Chinese military. And I think that there's a lot of space to do some bipartisan work on artificial intelligence because we all know it's a huge deal. We all know we need to do something to create left and right limits. And right now there's not a political divide on that issue. So that's good. And I do think it should be one of the big things we take up after we get through this latest crisis.
That's our show for this week. Thanks for watching the Capitol Rundown.